You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? It's a Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano, Nick Alberga, and the returning Jay Rosehill, but an under-the-weather Jay Rosehill. Rosie, I won't lie, I've been feeling kind of ill the last couple days as well, and weirdly enough, it's not about the Maple Leafs play because they haven't played, but how you doing today, buddy?
I feel like shit.
Made me wonder, too, when you told me, because same thing for me the last couple weeks. Just can't get in a groove, you know, in terms of feel and, like, illness-wise, but Did guys struggle like letting players or other players know or teammates know that like I'm not feeling well, maybe I shouldn't play tonight, or was it just like a rite of passage, like you play regardless?
I didn't notice sickness on the ice unless it was like the flu and you're completely dehydrated and your muscles are all buggered up. But I mean, if you're absolutely mangled, you're just like, I'm not going to be. Are you going to be better sick and in the lineup? Is the team going to be better, or is it going to be better with you not out? So you make that call. But usually guys battle through, you know, getting IVs and pounding the liquids and whatever else you can do. Get some of that Sudis, and you get some Sudafed in your bones back in the old days where they had all the good stuff in it, and you'll be buzzing for the couple hours they'll need you.
Remember we were talking a couple weeks back about the smelling salts. Maybe that's the perfect time for it, no?
I know. It's like those are making their way into like the mainstream. It's just ammonia, man. It just goes right up your nose, and it's just an ammonia shot to kind of give you a little wakey. But yeah, people are using that for like other shit lately. It's kind of funny.
It's ridiculous. Everywhere you look on social media, smelling salts this, smelling salts that. But, you know, I always wondered, like, growing up, too, like, you try to humanize the sport, humanize the NHL, and, like, day to day, like, sometimes you feel like you have to shit yourself. Sometimes you just feel like crap. But, like, you guys still have to go out there and play the game. I just wondered if, you know, if let's say you ate something weird, and maybe that's why players eat the same thing all the time. Like, you go out there and you feel like one hit and you might just disperse of yourself. Has that ever happened to you?
I can't say I've ever had the squirts playing. Shit does happen though. There's lots of times where you're sick and you don't feel good. I don't know. It is what it is. You just go out there for some reason. Once you go through your routine, you know, maybe you take some cold stuff before if you're feeling like garbage. But once you're out there, you just kind of fall into that groove and away you go, and you just grind it out for the amount of time that the game's on, and you can go back to feeling like shit later. But yeah, it's just like anything else. You have your up days, bad days. Sometimes you get bad sleep. You could be sick, anything else. And it's just like anyone else going to work, but it's kind of, you need to have your body performing at a high level for quite a while. So it is a little bit different, but it's like you say, it's just people, man. They're going to go through the same thing as anyone else who work in an office building.
Producer Aaron at the helm of our YouTube page with maybe the quote of the year, Rosie's flu game. If you remember, Michael Jordan had a flu game and he ripped it up. And it reminds me of, remember Ned Braden in Slapshot? I think he was like severely hungover and he's like, anybody touches me, I'm going to shit myself. Something like that, like not verbatim, but that's, yeah, I pissed myself. That's exactly it. I just wonder, like, man, there have been some beer league games where I'm like, man, I had one too many chicken wings or I shouldn't have eaten before the game. That's why religiously now I don't eat before playing sports, man. Something could happen that's awry. And I always thought about like humanizing the situation. There's got to be a guy or two out there that's got to take a dump during the game and they can't get to it, you know?
I had a guy I played with who would just piss himself on the bench if he had to go bad enough. Like he had a small bladder, and instead of going to the room in the middle of the period, and he just pissed himself on the bench. And no one knew it until he like said it. And then he'd wash all his stuff after. But I was just like, I was flabbergasted by that. I just couldn't even believe that a guy would bring himself to do that and then go out and play a shift in junior and multiple shifts. It was very, very weird, no doubt about it. And I don't know if anyone else has done that. Maybe we'll find out.
I can't say I've ever heard of that, but biggest question of your life, yay or nay to pissing in the shower?
Oh, all day, absolutely.
Yeah.
Piss down the drain. That's what it's for. I don't know. I'm not a germ guy. I'm not a weirded out guy by anything. I just let her roll. It's not going to hurt anybody. I don't care.
No, I'm with you. I'm right there with you. Everybody in the chat love to inquire on that situation too. Pissing in the shower, yay or nay. But yeah, that's my wonder. I can't say I've ever heard of a player piss themselves on the bench and everybody know it and everybody just move on with life. It's like somebody's got to call that out. We got a question off the top, Mark. You were first into the chat. Wonder how the boys will play on the big surface. So if you do recall the other day, Rosie brought up the Olympic ice surface. So from what I understand, I texted a few people that are over there. We're going to have Frank Sarvalli on the show tomorrow. He'll be at Avicii Arena for that game for the Maple Leafs, the first of 2 in the NHL Global Series. I poked around and found out they're going to play on NHL-sized ice. They're practicing on Olympic ice. This doesn't make sense. Like, why would you practice on Olympic ice and then play on NHL-sized ice? But it's going to be the NHL-sized ice here.
Yeah, and I guess I should have known better. I just assume Europe, big ice,
Me too,
hand in
though.
hand.
Me too.
There's mostly, I mean, even where I played over there, some were, some weren't. But I just assumed Sweden, that's just every barn in Sweden, I kind of assumed had Olympic sized ice, but it's the NHL. It's an NHL sanctioned event. I guess you can't really have a real game on a different surface, even though, in my opinion, they're two teams playing on the same thing, but you don't want to say, oh, this team could have an advantage. We didn't get an opportunity to play. And I mean, when you look at the standings coming down to wild cards and playoff things, it can come down to a couple points. So I guess they got to keep things consistent, makes sense. I'm curious if that Avicii Arena, if it usually has hockey boards in it, or if they kind of did this special for this series, and if they went out of their way to make it NHL ice or NHL size or not.
No, this is like I think it was called the Globe Arena before, something to that effect, because I've seen it actually. When I went to Stockholm, we drove past it in the Uber, and it's a legitimate arena. I think a club team plays there, but that's my wonder is like, why would you practice on Olympic ice if you're preparing for a game on NHL-sized ice? And that makes a difference. Like the time and space is different, no?
Yeah, it does. I mean, practice, whatever. You're going over there, man. You're looping and shooting at practice right now. These guys are using it as a team building,
hitting the club.
Yeah, well, I don't know how far. I mean, sure, they'll be doing a little bit of that. Some guys will sneak out here and there and get their licks in, but it's kind of a team building experience. And I don't think that arena would be open to them all week long to just loop and shoot out there. So you got to go to a different barn for practice. And I mean, I imagine, like I said, that's probably all you're going to find is the Olympic sheets, but it doesn't matter, man. When people when people break down, oh, this happened, or oh, they were not going to play well because this, that's like, oh my God, man, if they were that soft and sensitive to every little thing, they'd be playing like shit all the time, every day. Like you say, you have a bad sleep, you're not feeling good, you got to perform no matter what. And if you practice a few days on Olympic size rink and then go play in the NHL size that you've been playing with since you were 4, and that throws you off, you are a mental midget.
Yes, very well said. Imagine back in the 90s or the early 2000s, they had a global series, how guys would just completely send it, go with a full carton of smokes, come back with 0. Obviously, it's a lot different now. Like, I wonder if these guys are sending it as much as we think. Where back in the day, it was like a given. You're there for 7 days. You're probably going out for 8 nights, and that makes no sense whatsoever. But that's it's a lot different these days, no?
Yeah, it is, guys. I think as
they care about their bodies.
Yeah, they do. They take care of their bodies, every little thing. They got their nutritionist calling them all the time. And back in the day, they'd gas, a case of beers the night before a game, no problem. And it's not like guys have never done that anymore. But from what I've heard in that league, guys are more prone to sit in the hotel room and play COD on the Xbox as opposed to go out to dinner and do some of the extracurricular things. But we can pick Frank's brain. I imagine he's around the establishments and seen the players around, and he's coming on the show, Frank Sarvalli, tomorrow, and we'll pick his brains. Have you seen anyone out? Obviously, he's not going to throw anyone under the bus, but maybe he's like, oh, they're having their fun over there. And I imagine they are, and it's important to do that. They would have team dinners out the ass. The Maple Leafs would take care of a bunch of tabs, and they'd be using the opportunity as a team building thing, I'm sure.
Looking forward to Frank tomorrow. Looking forward to today's guest, Jonas Hoglund from the Pat Quinn era. Of course, the former line mate of Matt Sundin. He's out in Sweden. He's going to the game on Sunday. He's going to poke by in about 10 minutes from now. So looking forward to that. At the Leafs Nation 401, where you could subscribe on YouTube at the Leafs Nation 401. I've noticed in the videos the last couple of days, a lot of you are watching but are not liking. That makes no fucking sense to me. So hit that like button at the Leafs Nation 401. I implore you to do so and appreciate that. And search Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast for this podcast. I mean, we are booming right now, Rosie. I won't lie. Even though it's your flu game, you're humming along this season, buddy.
Yeah, I like the longer format. We can kind of wheel and deal and do our own thing. It was a little bit regimented last year with our time, and I like that. our following says, hey, we want more. We gave him a little more, and it seems to be a better setup for this teams or for this show surrounding this team. So I like it, man. Numbers are big. Thanks to everyone who's watching and participating in the show. We love doing it for you guys.
Love the PSA, brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off up to $10 in value and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, all uppercase for NATION25 for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So the development overseas is that John Klingberg, I guess, is banged up because he hasn't practiced yet in Sweden, and at this point looks doubtful for the opener tomorrow.
If he hasn't practiced, he's not playing. I mean, you don't go through a time change and a transit. What?
Have you heard the conspiracy theorists?
Ooh, I'm listening.
There is this widespread conspiracy in Toronto that John Klingberg is part of a return going to Calgary to get Tanev and Zadorov, which I think is just so fucking wild. But it is so Toronto that they're thinking the Leafs are holding this guy off the ice because when they come home from Sweden, they're going to make this deal with Calgary. It's insane to me. Hope I'm wrong.
Why is that insane? I thought you were going to say they're Matt Murraying him and just forcing him on long-term.
Well, exactly, dude. Exactly. I get Calgary is looking. Zadorov wants a trade. It's like, good job, buddy. You're in a contract here. You're going to get dealt because Calgary's shit. Like, you didn't really solidify anything. But, like, why would Calgary make a trade this early when they know every team and their mother is going to need this type of defenseman, these types of defensemen at the deadline? It makes no sense for them to jump and say, hey, we're going to take Toronto's offer right now. And on top of that, have they watched John Klingberg play hockey in the last 3 years? Like, why does Calgary want any part of this guy?
I know would they want him coming back. It's weird that he was hurt. He was on the shelf, then he came back to play, and now he's back, not even practicing. Kind of could say that's inexplicable and things like that are happening. But like you say, it doesn't really make sense. But better chance that he's tweaked something. And he is just back on the shelf, and I just don't see any chance that he's going to play over there. You don't do a transatlantic flight. You don't do the big time change. You don't go over there for that amount of time. I mean, it seems like they haven't played in a week. And then all of a sudden, having somewhat of a slight injury or something that's nagging you and then jumping right into a big game like that. I consider him out and off of the lineup at this point in time. And I don't know what's going on. And again, the way he's been playing, it's not like the most incredible loss we've ever experienced, but we'll see if Timmins comes back and can fill his boots.
Would you put Ryan Reaves in the lineup on Sunday when they play Minnesota?
Interesting.
Former team, and they wanted him bad. It was between Minnesota and Toronto, and Bill Guerin just couldn't get there with that contract.
Yeah, I mean, a good time to put him back in there. They were buzzing last game. It's a tough call, but like, you're such a big fan of redemption or whatever games you call it, where revenge games, and players seem to step up against their former teams and get things done. And he's got extra incentive being as he's been a scratch for the first time in a long time. So he'll probably be buzzing out there. I imagine he's had some talks and meetings, and he realizes, I have to do this, and the other thing to get and stay in the lineup. And with the revenge narrative, it seems like a good time to throw him back in, albeit when he was scratched, they seem to be a hell of a lot better. Like, remember that fourth line buzzing, scoring, hitting, fighting, everything you ask out of those guys is what they had going on last game. So it's going to be a tough call.
Yeah, my answer would be more specific on how they fare against Detroit tomorrow and then go from there. Like, if you win, I think you go back to the same lineup. I think we're at a point where the Leafs have to find consistency. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't named a starting goalie yet for that game. When we go to air tomorrow, we probably know who starts that game for the Leafs because they'll be on to their game day routine by that because they're 6 hours ahead here. But I think you have to go with a winning formula, winning lineup. And everything I saw on Saturday, specifically from that fourth line, leads me to believe like that's the best optimal lineup for this team right now.
I think so. And I think they would be a tougher decision if the Minnesota game was first, because then you're like, shit, what do we do? And you might just have to roll with the normal lineup, but definitely indicative on what happens tomorrow against Detroit. And what was I gonna say? Like it's tough sometimes. I remember playing where we would be on that Western road trip and we'd be playing in Calgary, and I'd have like 15 friends and family in the lineup, and we would have just lost our first game, in Edmonton or whatever it was. We're in Calgary. I'm like, let's friggin' go. Like, do you have any idea how hard I will be buzzing in Calgary? And Ron Wilson scratches me. He did it all the time,
Yeah,
man. It's like, God, man, don't you like, I guess maybe he doesn't even fucking care enough about me to know where I'm from or anything, but
probably.
happened all the time, man. And for all the barns I played in and blah, 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 the coming to Calgary is when I seem to be on the shelf more often than not, which pissed me off because you can use that motivation to your advantage, especially a fourth line energy guy who needs to be absolutely flying out there full of piss and vinegar. I would have been that way in Calgary, but Ronnie always had me up in the press box.
Of course, it was like the notorious story from Mike Babcock early on was like when they signed Jason Spezza, he scratched him for the opener in Ottawa. And people were like, dude, like, what are you doing? But it just spoke to volumes about Mike Babcock, I think.
Yeah, it turns out he's a bad guy.
No, you think he
Who
comes
knew?
back to the league? Like I saw people wondering if he was going to go to Edmonton. It's like you think they would bring him back after that shit. And by the way, Columbus is off to a horrible start. Once that happened, that team was cooked. They were done. That was it for their year. I'm sorry.
That is a tough bounce, Johnny G. Even though he's
Oh,
closer to Mama, he's still shitting the bed. So yeah, teams in shambles. I mean, a team like that, we don't even really think about them unless they're killing it. So good riddance.
yeah. Yeah. I just love that impression because I think you just look in general, everything Calgary related is just terrible right now, man. Johnny Gaudreau, Jonathan Huberdeau, like watching that game Friday, I know he had a 2-on-0 in OT. Like that's a lot of 10.5 sheets a year for the foreseeable future for a guy who's not even on your first power play unit right now. That's scary stuff, but
Yeah, and Johnny G kind of sums up the new age soft player to me. Um, scared shitless on the ice the entire time. Uh, absolutely disappears in the playoffs. Does not want to play that style of hockey. Literally says I requested a trade and like screwed over my team and signed elsewhere. Blah blah blah. Because I wanted to be closer to my mom. It was really difficult not being able to see her. Like Jesus Christ, man! What kind of man says that stuff? You can think it and feel it, but keep it to yourself. He's the epitome of soft, and I was glad to see him get out of Calgary scram.
so he didn't request a trade. He signed somewhere, but
Yeah,
I'm not going to defend him either. I think
yeah.
it's different. It's different. But I will say, like, I rather him just have said, I don't want to play for the Calgary Flames. I mean, you could understand that. Guys are not like not every guy wants to play in Canada. He's an American. Like he wanted to go somewhere else. I think guys earn that in free agency, no?
100%. Go wherever you
Yeah.
want. It's just his whole
How he
demeanor
handled it.
about it and his
Yeah.
new age. He's just the typical Gen Z, soft as baby shit, still mama, mama. Like, it's like, good man. Like, remember the men that used to play this sport in the late 90s and early 2000s, like Owen Nolan's and these
Oh,
Keith
tough motherfuckers.
Kachuk's and stuff. It's like, my lord, these guys are men. And these new guys that are like the flashy splash of the NHL, like Johnny Hockey. It's like Johnny Hockey. He plays half a hockey, shits his pants, and goes and hides in the playoffs every year. Don't give me Johnny Hockey.
If
Sorry
there's
about that.
two,
That's a Western Canadian rant there.
yeah, no, understandable. If there's two professional athletes you despise, it's LeBron James of the LA Lakers and weirdly enough, Johnny Gaudreau of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like that's your guy.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew? After watching all that Maple Leaf playoff hockey the last couple of years, Johnny Gaudreau is the hill you're gonna die on. Love that. Love
Hey,
that. Go back and watch that Florida series.
I've had plenty to say about the Maple Leafs
I know
playoff
you have.
performances.
It's giving you a hard time. Producer Aaron has a mock Leafs Flames trade from Twitter. I can't wait to see this. Leafs updates 21. I love that. Not even
Tanev
verified.
and Zadorov, a first, a
So
third,
it's
Klinger.
yeah. So Tanev Zadorov for a 2024 Toronto first, 2026 third, Klingberg, Abruzzese, and Connor Timmins. Your quick thoughts, and we're gonna get to Jonas Hoglund here.
That thing would be wicked. Let's go. To get both those big boys in the back end would I mean, right now we've got this unbelievably high octane front end, but there's just this big Swiss cheese hole in the lineup and in this team in order thinking long term. How are you going to win a cup? And is this the type of team that will? I don't think it is. And you throw those guys in the back end, and all of a sudden it's like, I think it's a major upgrade. And a first and a third, like people don't like that, but okay, let's not do this deal. Hang on to our first and then draft whoever that is next year. And where the hell are you? He's gonna win you a cup? Like, fuck no. it's time, like, make hay while the sun shines, and now's the time. So I would love to see a deal like this go done, and you can just see, the Leafs going guns blazing, saying we're making a run this year. I would just be so jacked about it, and those guys are the type of players that we need on the back end.
I think it's a pipe dream, man. Like if you're
I think it
Calgary,
is
and
too.
again, you hold all the cards, you hold the defenseman everybody wants. I think I would ask about Fraser Minton. I would ask about Easton Cowan. Like I need that type of prospects. With all due respect to Nick Alberga and Timmins, like they're a bit later on here, and I think we know what they are. So certainly something to monitor over the next couple weeks leading up to the trade deadline as well. Meantime, the following interview is brought to you by Sober Carpenter. Hold the alcohol, keep the flavor, enjoy a range of non-alcoholic beers so good you'll think it's the real thing. Look for Sober Carpenter at Sobeys, Loblaws, Whole Foods, Metro, Farm Boy, and other retailers today. As you bring in former Toronto Maple Leaf from the Matt Sundin era, the Pat Quinn era, it is Jonas Hoglund. What's going on, Jonas? Thanks so much for doing this today.
Well, thank you for having me, boys.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So give us the mood of what's going on in Sweden. Obviously, getting ready for the Global Series here.
Yeah, it's like you said, 4 teams here, and all the Swedes are excited to see to watch NHL games live, and especially Toronto. It's with the way Willie is playing right now, pretty excited to see him, and also Minnesota Wild have got 5 Swedes in their team, so it's going to be exciting few games here.
So this will be a packed barn for these games, I'm sure, Jonas. Are you going to be joining it, watching the game? You got tickets?
I'm actually going to do like a Q&A before the Minnesota game on Sunday. So I'm going to watch that game live. But before that, I'm not going to see any games live. I'm going to be at home and watch TV and then go up to Stockholm on Sunday.
Because you mentioned Willie's an absolute rock star. He's a rock star here in North America. I could only wonder what he's like in Sweden. Can you give us a sense of like how big Willie Nylander truly is in Sweden right now?
Oh, it's tough to say, really. To be honest with you, I think it's bigger in Canada and Toronto right now than it is in Sweden. But that's why they're going over to Sweden to play, right? To get them to get the young
Exposure.
kids, exactly, the exposure, and to get to see them live. I think they have a lot of kids watching their practices, pre-game skates and whatnot. So, and they're going out doing some stuff within the community, local schools or whatever they do. So, just to get them, get the NHL players exposure in Sweden. So, but in far as I think it's bigger in Canada right now, but it's more now, with all the social media, and now everybody can watch the games, right? So, but it's because of the time difference. They're in the middle of the night, so it's tough for the kids to see them live, right? So, yeah, this is the good way to see them live.
For sure. Speaking of stud Swedish players, you had, I'm sure, the privilege of playing with Matt Sundin for quite a few years there. What was that experience like, and how do you rank him as far as his talent level?
I rank him as the top, for sure, the best player that I played with. And I played with some good players over there too, the best Swedish player ever, in my opinion, to play over there. To watch him every day, how much he worked, and off the ice and in the gym, and the way he treated media, handled the media stuff. As a captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you have to bad games, good games. As soon as something happened, he was the one that had to talk to the scrums after the games and practices. So I was very impressed with that.
Jonas, we were talking earlier. Imagine like back in your day of playing, they did this global series. What do you think that experience would be like? Because like we often talk about like players these days, they're wound a bit differently than back in your era.
Yeah, that would be, it would be awesome for me coming over to play an NHL game in Sweden. That would be just unimaginable to be honest with you. But the way they do it now, it's great. I mean, they went to Australia, and they go to the Czech Republic, and they go all over the world and all over Europe. So I think it's the right way to do it. It's a tough travel for the players, but I think they enjoy it. I can't speak for them, but if I read and hear what they say, and I think they're happy about their experience.
Jonas, you played for a few teams, and the longest I think was for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You played with some legendary Maple Leafs themselves, coached by Pat Quinn himself. What was your experience in Toronto like, and did you expect that that environment being in the hub of hockey there for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I came from Montreal, so I played
you
2
got
seasons.
that.
I played 2 seasons in Montreal, so I kind of knew what to expect coming to Toronto. The media wise and the fan base that they got, and I came from I had a tough season, a tough year in Montreal, and scored 8 goals and didn't know what to expect during the summer going as a free agent. But I didn't have to go. I didn't have to wait long because Toronto called me just on July 2nd, I think, and wanted to sign me. So it was like no brainer for me. So I went there, took a shot, and then was able to stay for 4 years.
What was it like to play for the legendary Pat Quinn on a daily basis? People tell stories about him. I had an opportunity to meet Pat Quinn at the World Junior, I think back in 07. Just an unbelievable man.
He was an unbelievable man. He was like, you know what it looked like. He was big, kind of intimidating looking, but he was a very kind and nice man. And he was a player's coach. He let the players play as long as you did as you were told. And we had a pretty good team all my seasons there. So we went to the playoffs and went deep in the playoffs. So he was very successful, and I loved playing for him.
I bet last year we had a pretty emotional roller coaster ride there with Borje Salming coming and getting his tribute and seeing how frail he looked. And unfortunately, he passed away not long afterwards at all. So tell us a little bit about what he means to you, being your fellow countryman and being a Leafs legend.
What can be said about Borje that hasn't been said already? He was the trailblazer for all the Swedes. He was one of the first ones to come over. And to really make it over there. So he was, and his talent, he was such a good player, and he played the same way all the time. He blocked shots. He wasn't afraid to get in there. He was, in that era when he came over too. That there was the Broad Street Bullies or whatever you call the Philadelphia Flyers back then. There were some tough teams, and he really. He really got to experience going through some hard times over there, but he battled it out, and he was able to stay for 18 or 17 seasons. And I was able to play against him when he moved back. Actually, he moved back after his years in North America. He came over, and I played against him in the Swedish Elite League when he was like 40 years old or something like that. And he blocked. I took a slap shot for go to take a change or go. Exchange. So I was going to shoot it in from the red line, and he was outside the blue line and blocked my shot. Dropped back down on 2 knees and blocked my slap shot like in the stomach. He was 40 years old. That's just the way he played.
Absolute legend. I wanted to ask you as well about another legend who has yet to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and somebody you played with, Alexander Mogilny. I don't know what's going on there, man. Like, he deserves it. You played with him, right?
Yeah, I played with him for 2 seasons, I think. He was such a talent. He was such a easygoing guy. He never got too high, never got too low. He could have bad games too, but he was the same way anyway, all the time. And he did the things that he did, on the ice. It was just, he should be in the Hall of Fame for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to wrap with.
Sorry.
Pardon me.
It was just one of the most talented players that I ever played with. So,
yeah, definitely, and I hope he gets his day in the Hall one day, because again, I remember that era like it was yesterday. And Almo was phenomenal. I just want to dovetail the conversation, just get your thoughts on everything transpiring around Willie Nylander having an unbelievable contract here. He's really elevated this year. Like I think he's turned into a bona fide superstar. What does your gut tell you on Nylander in that situation? Like, to me and to us, he feels like he was just born to be a Maple Leaf. I'd love to see him here long term.
Yeah, I heard some interviews, and he made it clear that he wants to stay a Maple Leaf, right? So, and he's making his case for it. So it's going to be tough for the Maple Leaf brass not to sign him. I mean, as long as they can fit him under the salary cap, I don't know. He's going to be demanding a lot. He's going to ask for a lot, and he's playing like he deserves a lot of money. So, but he's, like you said, he's playing like a bona fide superstar right now, and and he had some good years, and but the way he started this season, he's I don't think Maple Leafs can afford not to sign him.
I agree. Worth every penny. Lastly, what have you been up to these days? And you're looking forward, obviously, to the weekend here, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm looking forward to it. But I work as a instructor at a local high school here in my hometown, Karlstad. It's about 3-hour 3-hour car drive from Stockholm. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. And I also help my agent with scouting and recruiting, and watch a lot of kids play hockey.
Incredible, Jonas. It's great to connect with you. Thank you so much for doing this. Really, really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Jonas. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Jonas Hoglund, an absolute stud, man. Like, I remember that era, the Pat Quinn era. Like, we often bring this up. Like, that was Leafs hockey, man. And I'm sure that's what inspired you in your career when you put on the blue and white. Like, I just remember every year getting excited. Not that I don't feel the same way about this team, but like, especially in the playoffs, and I understand it was different hockey back then, you knew what you were getting from the Maple Leafs. And they were one of the toughest teams year in and year out to play against, right? You had Domi, you had Tucker, you had others on that roster, just really, really gritty, right?
Yeah, fuck. They should have won a cup during that era, man. They were pretty damn close, but in that decade there that you're talking about, they were just, how could you have not liked them, with Pat Quinn at the helm? And you go back earlier with the Wendell Clark stuff, and later with Tucker and Corson, and in there is, Killer with Gilmore, Felix Potvin. I wasn't even a goalie guy or a Maple Leafs guy growing up, but I was obsessed with Felix Potvin. I just thought he was the sickest goalie in the biz. And yeah, to have a guy on that played during that, it was special. And thinking back to it, you just kind of cringe thinking, imagine they won one back then. They should have. It would have been amazing, but unfortunately, it's hard to do, it turns out.
You know what still eats me up to this day is that conference final against the Carolina Hurricanes. I won't lie. I saw the Leafs matching up against the Canes. I'm like, this is the year. They're finally going to go to the Stanley Cup for the first time in a long, long time. And Carolina just fucking buzzsawed them, man. Like, they just were not. I know it was a 6-game series, but like, that's the one that still eats away at me in my lifetime, is that Carolina series. I don't know if you remember it. Arturs Urbe was a starting goalie for Carolina.
Archers. Yeah, so what is that, early 2000s kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it could have even been 99, maybe in the chat, if you guys can pipe up on that, the year that the Leafs lost to Carolina in the conference final. But yeah, like, they had some battles,
it was a wicked era, man.
Yeah.
Wicked era, big battles, good hockey. I mean, there's probably no greater example than watching hockey where it bumps up an extra notch like you wouldn't believe in the playoffs. And it's just like the refs put the whistle away, the guys just decide to go to war, and they friggin' sacrifice their bodies left, right, and center to try to get that holy grail. And it's wicked era of hockey, man. And yeah, like you said, there's some heartbreaks on the Toronto Maple Leafs history, no doubt about it. We are famous for it.
99-2000, Donnie Does Dishes helping us out. 99-2000, I think. Leafs won game 1 of that Kane series, PS17. And somebody also wrote in, I'm trying to look for it right now. Now we need a Grabowski interview. Just so you know, we are chasing down some alumnus who will do some interviews on this show, and Mikhail Grabowski is on my list. I have his contact info. So at some point in time, we're going to try to link up with Grabo. You played with him, right?
Yeah, Grabo and Kuhlman, they were attached at the hip. I'm wondering, like, his English wasn't fantastic at the time when he's playing.
Apparently
in North
it
America.
Is now.
Really? Well, usually when they go back over, like, I talk to buddies that I used to play with, and they're like, "Oh, this is crazy. I haven't spoken English in so long. It's so bad," or whatever. And I'm like, a guy that didn't have it down pat when he was over here, and then 10 years later, whatever, he's been over in his hometown. You wonder how that is, but nonetheless, I'm sure people would like to hear from him.
For sure. So lots of great guests upcoming on the show this season. And again, appreciate all the support at the Leafs Nation 401. Want to get your thoughts on Connor Timmins, who's closing in on his season debut. Of course, got hurt in training camp, the lower body injury. Doesn't sound like he's good to go tomorrow, but where would you deploy Timmins. Granted, it's probably easier now with Liljegren out of the lineup for the foreseeable future, but to start, I would definitely put him ahead of Klingberg, no?
Yeah, I would think so. Try to get him some confidence, try to make his return something that can build confidence.
Yeah.
You're not going to throw 25 minutes at the guy, obviously. You're going to try to ease him into it, but try to get him in positions that he can have success while still kind of protecting the fact that he's going to have a little bit of rust on him. But it's going to be nice to get him back. I didn't realize how much, we would miss him. He's a guy that's kind of right in that in his prime. He's coming into his prime. Those defensemen don't really develop and really get the hold of their position till that 25 to 27 is kind of when they really come together. He's right there, bigger body too, and I hope that he comes in and makes an impact because the back end could really use it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's something that you have to see what you have. I know in practice he's been QBing power play 1. I think they're going to give him a look there. It looks like they're going to just try to replace Klingberg altogether and make him the number 7 defenseman and filter him in and out, because Klingberg can just run the power play. That's about it. But obviously there's going to be some injuries that happen and stuff like that. But I think Timmins has to be a guy in the top 6 right now on the back end. Like, at least you have to give him a shot. I think from last year to this year in training camp, if you do recall in training camp, he looked fantastic before he got injured. I think you have to give him a bit of a leash and an opportunity to grab a hold of one of those positions. Like, he's earned it. I really feel like Connor Timmins has earned the ability to play a couple games in a row and after a bad mistake, not bench his ass,
Oh, for sure. I don't really believe in that regardless. I mean, I know what that feels like. And for guys that are playing on a short leash, and it's just so friggin' easy to grip your stick too tight when you know that there's going to be major consequences for any mistake that you make, and mistakes happen by the best players in the NHL every night. So it's not really, acceptable to accept perfection from players who are far from it. I mean, nobody is. So playing with a direct line from your play, thinking right about the coach, thinking that the coach has got eagle eyes on you, and just waiting for that one bobbled pass or that one, play where you put it to, through a little bit too much traffic or turn the puck over in the neutral zone, whatever it is. You can't play hockey, especially in the NHL, gripping the hell out of your stick, worried about making mistakes. So if you're a coach that's, threatening benchings and scratches and stuff like that as a way to motivate, I just think you're a dinosaur and you're out to lunch. It's not the way to get the best of the players.
Big_ Kevin C writes in, any chance of getting Clark on the show? I assume he means Clark MacArthur. We actually had him on the show in the summer. So go back to our interviews page here
Wendell.
on YouTube. Pardon me?
Wendell.
Yeah, I think he means Clark MacArthur.
Really? We had Clarky on already. I'm going to go golf with him this winter, most likely, but I would think they mean Wendell Clark.
Well, do you want to take that one? You want to field the Wendell Clark one?
Wendell Clark probably gets asked to do so many things, and he's just not into it. He's a good Sasky boy.
He meant Wendell.
When we watched that game together, I brought my brother, and they were just shooting the shit about trucks and cattle. So I think that's more down his wheelhouse than coming on these. I don't think he follows it to the T, and he doesn't feel like he has any insight. But nonetheless, I'm sure of it. If we were able to get him on, he would have a big following on that video because he's an absolute legend.
Fucking legend. We were in the alumni box last year. Remember when you came to Toronto and Matt Murray was supposed to start against Ottawa, and then Matt Murray was wearing a ball cap that game? We bumped into Wendell Clark in the alumni box, and we're working on it. That's the best way to describe it. So looking forward to that.
Or no? Did he say he
Pardon
would,
me?
or did Tucker say he would, or did Wendell say he would?
Wendell. No, Wendell. I don't think Wendell gave an answer. I don't think Tucker gave an answer. We're working on it. Shit. Jeff O'Neill would be another great guest. Like, we don't want to make the guest the whole focus of the podcast, but we do think it enhances the podcast a bit.
Hey, I think we've done a good mixture so far, and hats off to you. You're usually the one pulling all the guests onto this program, so I'm sure people have liked it. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, I love that. We'll get Luke Shen on too down the road here. Maybe some Claude Giroux, maybe some Braden Shen. So you're participating to the endeavor as well. But yeah, we Mikhail Grabowski's definitely on the list. Guys like that. Pretty much open any Leafs alumni. By the way, Matthew Barnaby, we've linked in for next week. He's going to join us on Tuesday. We're going to talk about toughness. You guys can talk about scraps. That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're gaining momentum slowly but surely here on the show, brought to you by Betano, the 2023 EGR winner for both the Best Sportsbook Operator of the Year and Best In-Play Sports Operator Awards. The game starts now. A couple bets I'm actually into tonight. The Tampa Bay Lightning in the Chicago. If you remember last week, the Hawks beat the shit out of Tampa at Amalie Arena. I think Tampa returns the favor. So I'm hammering the Tampa Bay Lightning in that game. That's probably my play for today.
I like it. Let's ride that. I'll tell you on that.
Okay. You have absolutely nothing then, I'm guessing.
Literally, man, my head's going to explode right now. I'm just trying not to drip snot on the microphone.
The Rosie flu game. We love it. The other look I would look at, Vegas and Montreal, by the way. I just couldn't find my sheet. I did a podcast for the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast earlier today. We have to make betting plays. And the other play I liked quite a bit, significantly enough, was Vegas and Montreal. The Montreal puck line in that game. 8 of 11 all-time matchups between Montreal and Vegas have been settled by 1 goal, and that's just in regular season action. So I think there's some value there. So Rosie, we'll leave it at that. Appreciate you playing through a bit of a cold. I am as well. Producer Aaron too. Everybody be well out there, and looking forward to Friday where we can actually preview and tee up a hockey game. Frank Saravalli is going to drop by. It's a 2 Eastern start time, by the way, at Avicii Arena in Sweden between the Leafs and the Red Wings. The Wings on the back-to-back, by the way, so be mindful of that. And Ville Husso's not in that trip, so trying to figure out who they can. Maybe it's Alex Lyons starting in the second game for Detroit, so the Leafs have to find a way to capitalize on that.
Yeah, we'll check the lines on Betano there to see what that is, but I feel like there's a ripe opportunity to put down some cash on that game. You always got to wonder, though, with that much time off and all the distractions and whatnot, where the Leafs' heads are going to be at starting that game, where maybe the back-to-back could benefit the Detroit Red Wings as they're into it. They're focused, where, I mean, there's no excuse for it, but the Leafs are kind of famous for, oh man, we just weren't really there for our minds weren't there. And it's like, man, this is the show. I don't think you can rely on that excuse. So we'll see where they're at. We'll see what the lines are and see how the Leafs show up with the different look of being overseas.
Mr. P-Mail Bacon writes in, will Rosie be up at 6 a.m. for Sunday's game?
Maybe.
Fuck no.
Maybe.
That's not a
Mountain
chance
time?
in hell. I'll put my life savings on you're not going to be up at 6 a.m. for that game. No shot.
Well, tomorrow I have at 11:30 dental surgery where I got a whole front row of fake shit from a clapper I took to the face. And one of them's got to go. So I'm curious as to how that's going to look on the Monday show, if I'm going to have the partial all fixed up. But I know I'm only going to catch half of the game tomorrow. So that might be incentive. Maybe I'm sick, feeling like garbage, wake up at 4:30, can't sleep, throw on the old hockey game. Never know. We'll see.
Dude, the game's going to be on at 8 a.m. here in North America. It's very unlikely I catch it live. Okay. I don't know what 8 a.m. is.
You're a 17-year-old going on. No, you're the 34-year-old going on 17, basically. So I doubt you get up before 11 very often.
It is. That's a tough wake up for me, man. That's especially on a Sunday, especially the fact that I'm going to be in Florida. I'm going to the Lightning and Oilers game on Saturday afternoon. Pardon me?
No chance for you then. That's already gone.
It's very unlikely. I'm going to send it full send in Tampa on Saturday night with my buddy, and just very unlikely. But I will watch the game at some point.
Why wouldn't you? It's part of your job, you donkey. Let's wrap it up.
Games is part of the job, Rosie. Appreciate your time today. That's Jay Rosehill. Everybody in the chat, you guys are fantastic at the Leafs Nation 401. And so gracious of you to request some people to be on this show. You don't think we've tried every fucking name, including Colton Orr. We've tried everybody. And we'll continue to try.
So many guys don't like it, man. So many guys just don't want to be put on the spot. They don't like doing interviews. They don't want to be, they're just scared to get asked a question. They don't know the answer. They don't want to look dumb. And guys just avoid it at all costs. It's actually kind of surprising how many guys are just like, I love you guys. I would love to, but I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm not going to do that. It's like, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, it is what it is. I totally get it. Again, I come from the other side of the spectrum where I'm in media, and sometimes, especially in Toronto, like guys just don't even want to be quoted. They just want to go on with their lives. They were Maple Leafs. They enjoyed their time. So again, we move on with this show. Nevertheless, we're still going to have shows the next day and the next day and the next day. So it is what it is. Many thanks to Jay Rosehill at the Leafs Nation 401. where you can subscribe in the chat. Producer Aaron, fantastic as per usual. Everyone in the chat, you guys were great. We'll be back tomorrow again. Normal time. Frank Saravalli is going to drop by 10 minutes into the show. We're going to preview the game from Avicii Arena. It's the Leafs and the Red Wings. We'll talk on Friday. Take care, everybody.
I'm about to sneeze.
Thank you for watching Leafs Morning Take. Hit that subscribe button and never miss a show. And for more, visit theleafsnation.com. TheLeafsNation.com. If you don't know how to spell the Leafs Nation, you know what I mean? But hey, sometimes you never know.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.